The blade hung there, suspended in the air like reality itself had forgotten how physics worked. I stared at it, all three of my eyes widening in what could only be described as pure, unadulterated confusion. The weapon, a standard-issue Vrakkian combat knife, glowed faintly with residual heat from its owner's grip. It should have been embedded in the human's chest by now, should have sliced through bone and tissue like it was designed to do, should have ended this ridiculous confrontation in the cargo bay of the merchant vessel Prosperity's Edge. Instead, it just stopped. "Did you just?" I began, my translator struggling to find the right words in standard Galactic. The human, who had introduced himself earlier as Marcus Webb, slowly lowered his hand. His fingers were maybe, and I'm being generous here, 2 millimeters from the blade's edge. He hadn't even touched it. The knife simply refused to continue its trajectory, hanging in the air like someone had pressed pause on the universe. "Yeah," Marcus said, his voice carrying that peculiar tone humans used when they were trying very hard not to laugh. "I did just." Behind me, Throk the Vrakkian, who moments ago had been radiating confidence and violent intent, made a sound like a deflating accordion. His forearms, which had been flexed and ready for combat, slowly lowered to his sides. The purple hue of his skin shifted to a sickly pale lavender. "That's not possible," Throk whispered, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Funny thing about humans," Marcus said, reaching out and plucking the floating knife from the air like he was picking fruit. "We have this habit of making the impossible look easy. Coffee helps." He was holding a cup in his other hand, an actual cup of that toxic brown liquid humans consumed like it was life support. Steam rose from it in lazy spirals, completely undisturbed by the fact that we were currently in the middle of what should have been a deadly fight. "My name is Kilrex, by the way. Senior Cargo Inspector for the Galactic Trade Commission, though after today, I'm seriously considering a career change. Maybe something simple like asteroid mining or professional cowardice, anything that doesn't involve humans and their absolute disregard for the laws of nature." "You need to explain that," I said, gesturing at the knife Marcus now held casually in his hand. "Right now, before I file 17 different incident reports and have a complete mental breakdown." Marcus took a sip of his coffee. Actually took a sip, like we weren't standing in a cargo bay, with a stunned Vrakkian pirate and several dozen shocked witnesses from various species. "Well, you see, it's pretty straightforward. I didn't want to get stabbed today. Had plans. Important plan. There's a new season of Galactic Bake Off starting, and I've got money riding on the Thraxian contestant." "That explains nothing," Throk roared, finding his voice again. "You use some kind of force field, some human technology we don't know about." "Nope," Marcus said cheerfully. "No force field. Just good old-fashioned human stubbornness and a complete refusal to accept reality when it's inconvenient." I felt my primary breathing sac constrict. This was not happening. This could not be happening. I had read the reports about humans, of course. Everyone in the Trade Commission had. They were the new species on the block, barely a century into their space age and already causing problems everywhere they went. But the reports had been sanitized, professional. They used words like unusual resilience and unexpected problem-solving capabilities. Nobody had mentioned that they could stop flying blades with their minds. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly, my translator working overtime to keep my tone even. "You just decided the knife wouldn't hit you?" "And it didn't." "Pretty much," Marcus agreed. He was examining the blade now, turning it over in his hands like he was considering buying it at a market. "Nice balance on this, actually. Vrakkian military grade." Throk's skin went from pale lavender to an even paler shade of what I can only describe as existential crisis purple. "This is impossible. I threw that knife with enough force to punch through battle armor. I've killed 17 opponents with that exact technique." "Sounds like you need a new technique," Marcus suggested helpfully. "Maybe try asking nicely first. I hear diplomacy is making a comeback." One of the other cargo loaders, a Zenthi female named Prax, made a choking sound that might have been laughter or horror, possibly both. She had been recording the entire incident on her optical implant, something I was definitely going to have to confiscate for evidence, assuming I survived long enough to file the paperwork. "Okay," I said, holding up my primary manipulator appendages in what I hoped was a calming gesture. "Everyone just needs to calm down. Marcus, I'm going to need you to come with me to the security office. Throk, you're under arrest for attempted murder, piracy, and making my job significantly more difficult than it needs to be." "I want to try again," Throk said suddenly. His confidence was returning, probably because his brain was desperately trying to rationalize what had just happened. That was a fluke. Some kind of trick. "Oh, this is going to end badly," Prax muttered from behind a stack of cargo crates. Marcus handed me his coffee cup. Hold this, please. Not your beverage assistant, I protested, but I took the cup anyway because honestly, what else was I going to do? The situation had already spiraled so far beyond standard protocol that I might as well embrace the chaos. Throk pulled out another knife. This one was larger, serrated, and glowing with some kind of plasma edge that probably cost more than my yearly salary. He growled something in Vrakkian battle cant, which my translator helpfully informed me was roughly equivalent to "I will feast on your intestines." Charming, Marcus said, really working that whole pirate aesthetic. The knife flew through the air, spinning end over end with lethal precision. I watched it arc toward Marcus's face, my 3 hearts all stopping simultaneously. So was it. This was how the incident report would read: human killed by Vrakkian pirate while Trade Inspector watched helplessly and held his coffee. The blade stopped. This time Marcus hadn't even raised his hand. The knife just halted in midair, maybe 5 centimeters from his left eye, spinning slowly like it was caught in an invisible lazy Susan. Huh? Marcus said, leaning forward to examine it. This one's fancy. Plasma edge and everything. Must have set you back a few credits. Throk made a sound like a dying engine. His forearms began to shake, and for a moment I genuinely thought he might cry. What are you? He whispered. Tired. Marcus replied, plucking the second knife from the air and examining it alongside the first. And significantly undercaffeinated, which is probably why I'm being so patient with you. Normally I would have just called security and let them handle this. You are handling this, I shouted, my translator adding several distressed harmonics to emphasize my emotional state. You're handling it by breaking the fundamental laws of physics. That's not normal. That's not how matter and energy work. Marcus looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Something that made my scales itch with primal unease. It wasn't menace exactly, or power or any of the usual things you'd expect from someone performing impossible feats. It was more like mild annoyance with a side order of, I've dealt with worse before lunch. Kilrex, he said calmly, I need you to take a deep breath. Or whatever your species does. Take several deep breaths. I don't want to take deep breaths. I want explanations. I want this situation to make sense. That's going to be difficult, Marcus admitted. He gestured around the cargo bay with the 2 knives. See, the thing about humans is that we've never been particularly good at accepting limitations. Someone tells us something can't be done, and our immediate response is usually watch me. It's gotten us into trouble more times than I can count, but it's also gotten us to the stars, so... He shrugged. Trade-off. Throk collapsed onto a cargo crate, his massive frame looking suddenly deflated. I can't go back to my crew and tell them I was defeated by a human who just wouldn't let my weapons work. They'll think I've gone mad. Or worse, they'll think I'm weak. You could always try a different line of work, Marcus suggested. I hear the Galactic Bake-Off is looking for contestants. You've got 4 arms. Think of the multitasking potential. Several of the onlookers who had been watching this entire exchange with varying degrees of shock and confusion actually laughed at that. The tension in the cargo bay shifted slightly, from imminent violent death to completely surreal situation that nobody knows how to process. I handed Marcus back his coffee cup. My manipulator appendages were shaking and I needed to do something with them before I accidentally filed a stress molt right there in the cargo bay. Fine, I said, my voice coming out higher pitched than I intended. Fine. You've stopped 2 thrown weapons with nothing but your inexplicable human nonsense. Congratulations. But I still need to file a report about this incident, and I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to write. Just put down human refused to be stabbed, Marcus said, helpfully. Keep it simple. That's not a valid incident classification. Then make a new category. Humans being difficult. I'm sure it'll get plenty of use. Prax emerged from behind her cargo crates, her optical implant still recording. I got the whole thing on video. Every second. This is gonna go viral across 17 star systems by tomorrow. Fantastic, I muttered. Exactly what this situation needed. Galactic publicity. Marcus handed the 2 knives back to Throk, who took them with trembling hands. Look, Marcus said, his tone gentler now. I get it. You're a pirate. You've got a reputation to maintain. But maybe consider that reputation isn't worth dying for, you know? Take up a hobby. Learn to paint. Join a support group for reformed criminals. The galaxy's a big place. Lots of opportunities. Throk looked at the knives in his hands, then at Marcus, then back at the knives. I've been a pirate for 20 cycles, he said quietly. It's all I know. Then learn something new, Marcus replied. Humans do it all the time. We're terrible at it, but we do it anyway. That's kind of our thing. Your thing is defying physics and making people question reality. I corrected. That too, Marcus agreed cheerfully. I was about to respond when the cargo bay doors opened and 3 security officers rushed in, weapons drawn and looking like they expected to find a massacre. Instead, they found Marcus Webb drinking coffee, a deflated Vrakkian pirate sitting on a cargo crate contemplating his life choices, and me having what was probably the worst duty shift of my career. We got a report of weapons fire and combat, the lead security officer said, looking around in confusion. What's the situation? I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally managed. The human broke physics and stopped 2 thrown knives in midair using nothing but pure human stubbornness and an apparent disregard for how reality works. The security officers looked at Marcus. Marcus sipped his coffee. I'm going to need that in writing, the lead officer said. Get in line, I muttered. The security briefing room was entirely too small for this conversation. Or maybe it just felt that way because I was sitting across from Marcus Webb, who was now on his 3rd cup of coffee and showing absolutely no signs of stress, guilt, or concern about the fact that he had just violated approximately 47 laws of physics in front of multiple witnesses. Captain Vrakkian, station commander and the unfortunate soul responsible for sorting out this mess, sat at the head of the table with her head in her hands. She was Kaldorian, which meant she had excellent hearing, 3 separate brain lobes for logical processing, and right now, absolutely zero patience for what she was being told. Run that by me again, she said, her voice carrying the kind of exhaustion usually reserved for parents of particularly troublesome children. Slowly, using small words, the human stopped 2 knives in midair. I repeated for what felt like the 1,000th time. No technology, no force fields, no visible equipment of any kind. The blades just stopped, froze, refused to continue existing in the trajectory they were thrown. And you're certain this wasn't some kind of holographic trick? A prank? Captain, Prague said, pulling up her recording on the briefing room display. I have full spectrum analysis from my optical implant. No holograms, no energy signatures consistent with force field technology. The knives were real, the throw was real, and the physics breaking nonsense was unfortunately also real. We all watched the playback. Throk's first knife flying through the air, Marcus's hand reaching out but not touching it, and then the blade just hanging there like someone had frozen time itself. The second throw was even more dramatic because Marcus hadn't even bothered to gesture. The plasma-edged knife simply stopped existing in motion and started existing in stillness. Captain Thex made a sound like grinding gears. This is going to require so much paperwork. Tell me about it, I muttered. Marcus raised his hand like he was in a classroom. Quick question. Am I under arrest, or is this more of an informal chat? Because if it's informal, I really should be getting back to my ship. Galactic bake-off starts in 2 hours, and I've got a very comfortable viewing chair calling my name. You're not under arrest, Captain Thex said slowly. You're under observation, intense observation. The kind where we try to figure out if you're a threat to station security or just really, really weird. Option 2, Marcus said helpfully. Definitely option 2, humans. The captain said, pulling up a data file on her terminal. I've been in the galactic community for 93 standard years. In that time, you've caused approximately 2,417 major incidents that required Trade Commission intervention. That's an average of 26 incidents per year. Per year, Mr. Webb. Sounds low, honestly, Marcus said. We're usually more productive than that. So, I choked on my own saliva. Actually choked. Prax had to hit me on the back with her manipulator appendage while I coughed and tried to remember how breathing worked. You think that's low? Captain Thex asked, her 3 brain lobes probably working overtime to process that statement. Well, yeah, Marcus said, like this was obvious. There are 40 billion humans spread across 130 colonies now, 26 incidents per year across that population. That's actually pretty good impulse control for us. The captain stared at him. I stared at him. Prax stared at him. Even the security officers standing by the door stared at him. Your species considers restraint to be causing only 26 galactic incidents per year? I finally managed to say, look, Marcus said, leaning forward in his chair with the earnest expression of someone about to explain something they genuinely believed was reasonable. Humans have this thing where we don't really accept that something is impossible until we've personally tried it at least 3 times and failed spectacularly. It's a survival trait. Worked great on Earth. Slightly more problematic in a galaxy with actual rules and consequences. Slightly? Captain Thex's voice had climbed several octaves. Okay, moderately problematic, Marcus conceded. But here's the thing. You're all focusing on the knife-stopping thing like it's this huge mysterious event. It's not. It's just humans being humans. We're really stubborn. Aggressively stubborn. The kind of stubborn that makes reality uncomfortable. That's not how reality works. I shouted, my translator adding several layers of distress harmonics that probably made me sound deranged. Not how your reality works, Marcus corrected. Human reality is a bit more flexible. We've got this concept called the placebo effect, right? Where if we believe something hard enough, our bodies just kind of go along with it. Sugar pills curing diseases, fake surgeries healing injury, that kind of thing. Captain Throk pulled up another file. I've read about this. Human medical literature describes it as a psychological phenomenon with limited physical effects. Limited by human standards, Marcus said. Which, let's be honest, aren't great standards. We regularly ignore things like mortal injuries, sleep deprivation, and common sense. Our baseline for what's possible is already kind of broken. Prax was frantically taking notes on her datapad, her optical implant still recording everything. So you're saying that humans can just will things into happening? That's your explanation? Not exactly, Marcus said. And for the first time since this whole mess started, he actually looked like he was taking the conversation seriously. It's more like, okay, you know how every species has some kind of survival trait? Vrakkians have 4 arms and redundant organs. Koldorians have advanced logical processing. Zenthas have adaptive camouflage. Yes, Captain Throk said cautiously. Standard evolutionary advantages. Right. Well, humans evolved on a death world. And I don't mean that in the dramatic sense. Earth is legitimately trying to kill everything on it all the time. Predators, diseases, weather patterns that can flash freeze you or cook you alive, tectonic activity that reshapes entire continents without warning. It's a nightmare planet. We've seen the geological surveys, I admitted. Your homeworld is classified as a Class 4 hazard zone. We're still not clear how you survived long enough to develop space travel. Spite, Marcus said simply. We survived on pure spite and a refusal to accept that we should be dead. That trait got encoded into our DNA. Every human alive today is descended from ancestors who looked at impossible odds and said, watch me anyway. We've been doing it for so long that reality kind of learned to get out of our way. There was a long silence in the briefing room. That's insane, Captain Throk finally said. Yeah, Marcus agreed. But it's also true. You want proof? Pull up human history. Not the sanitized version we show aliens. The real version. Look at how many times we should have gone extinct and just didn't. Look at the things we've survived. The disasters we've walked away from. The absolute nonsense we've accomplished because nobody told us it was impossible until after we'd already done it. Prax's manipulator appendages were shaking as she scrolled through her datapad. Captain, I'm looking at their historical records now. They've survived 12 separate extinction-level events. 12. And that's just in the last 100,000 years. Sounds about right, Marcus said, sipping his coffee. How? I demanded. How is that possible? Because we're too stubborn to die, Marcus replied. And eventually the universe just kind of gave up trying to kill us and let us do our thing. Which brings us back to today. Throk threw a knife at me. I didn't want to get stabbed. My body, which has millions of years of refuse to die programming built into it, went, okay, cool, let's make that not happen. And reality, which has learned that arguing with humans is exhausting and pointless, just went along with it. Captain Throk was making a sound like a computer trying to process corrupted data. That's not. You can't just. Physics doesn't work that way. Human physics does, Marcus said cheerfully. Kind of. Sometimes. When we're caffeinated enough. The coffee, I said suddenly, a horrible realization dawning on me. You've been drinking coffee this entire time. Is that part of it? Oh, definitely, Marcus confirmed. Humans run on coffee, spite, and poor life choices. Take away any one of those 3 things and we become significantly less functional, and significantly less likely to accidentally break the laws of thermodynamics. So you're telling me, Captain Throk said, her voice very quiet and very dangerous, that caffeine consumption is directly correlated with humans developing reality warping abilities. I mean, I wouldn't call them reality warping abilities, Marcus said. That sounds way more impressive than it actually is. It's more like reality suggestions, reality negotiations. We don't warp reality so much as we strongly imply that reality might want to consider doing things our way, and reality usually decides it's not worth the argument. Prax looked up from her datapad, her optical implant flickering with processing strain. Captain, I've been running calculations. If what Marcus is saying is true, and humans can influence physical outcomes through sheer force of will combined with biochemical stimulation, and the potential applications are terrifying, I suggested. I was going to say revolutionary, but terrifying works too. Both, Captain Throk said firmly. The answer is both. This is both revolutionary and terrifying. She turned to Marcus. How many other humans can do what you did today? Marcus shrugged. Hard to say. Most humans don't get into situations where someone's throwing knives at them. But I'd guess all of them? Under the right circumstances. It's not like I'm special. I'm just a cargo hauler who really likes baking shows and didn't want to miss the season premiere because some pirate decided today was a good day for murder. All of them, the captain repeated faintly. 40 billion humans. All potentially capable of telling physics to sit down and shut up. When properly motivated, sure, Marcus agreed. Though honestly, most humans are too busy with their own problems to bother messing with fundamental forces. We save it for special occasions. Near-death experiences. Impossible deadlines. Tuesdays? I asked weakly. Tuesdays are awful, Marcus said with complete sincerity. They require extra spite just to get through. Captain Throk stood up, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound like a dying animal. I need to file a report with the Galactic Council. They need to know about this. They need to understand what humans are actually capable of. Good luck with that, Marcus said. Last time someone tried to explain human capabilities to the Council, they didn't believe it until we'd already colonized 16 systems they'd declared uninhabitable. We have a settlement on a planet where it rains sulfuric acid. We've got mining operations in the chromosphere of a red giant star. There's a human restaurant on a moon that phases in and out of regular space-time every 6 hours. We're everywhere, and we're doing everything we were told was impossible. Why? Prax asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Why do you keep pushing boundaries? Why can't you just accept limitations like every other species? Marcus smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made me understand exactly why humans had conquered a death world and then proceeded to make the entire galaxy uncomfortable. Because limitations are boring. Because someone saying you can't do that sounds an awful lot like a challenge to us. And because at the end of the day humans are really bad at being told no. That's not a survival trait, Captain Throk said. That's a mental illness. Little bit of both. Probably. Marcus admitted. But it got us here, didn't it? It got us to the stars. It got us seats at the galactic table. And it got me through today without any new holes in my body, so I'm calling it a win. I looked at the captain. She looked at me. We shared a moment of profound, mutual understanding that our lives had just gotten infinitely more complicated. Fine, Captain Throk said. You're free to go, but I'm flagging your file with every regulatory agency in 12 sectors. If you pull this reality-bending nonsense again, I'll try to only break physics on weekdays, Marcus promised. And never during important trade negotiations. That's not reassuring. It's the best I can offer, Marcus said, standing up and draining the last of his coffee. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a baking show to watch. May the best Vrakkian win. He walked out of the briefing room like he hadn't just redefined our understanding of physical law. Prax. Captain Throk and I sat in silence for a long moment. So, Prax finally said, humans, huh? Yeah, I replied, feeling every one of my years pressing down on me. Humans. Captain Throk pulled up a bottle of Aldebaran brandy from under her desk and poured 3 glasses without asking if we wanted any. We drank in silence, contemplating a galaxy that now included 40 billion reality-stubborn primates who ran on coffee and poor impulse control. Somewhere in the station, Marcus Webb was probably watching his baking show, completely unaware or unconcerned that he'd just made everyone who witnessed his little demonstration question everything they thought they knew about how the universe worked. And the truly horrifying part? He was right. Humans were everywhere, doing impossible things, acting like the fundamental laws of nature were more like friendly suggestions. I poured myself another drink. It was going to be a very long career.